welcome back to the Mind and Money podcast, where we talk about finances for neurodiverse women. I am Sherry, a financial coach.
And I am Val, a financial planner. And today we are talking about 6 money tips for neurospicy women that help them manage their money. The first one that I have is start. And I think Sherry can echo with this too. I have met so many clients that go, well, if I had done this earlier, and the answer is start where you're at. You do not need to clean things up before you start working with us. That is part of working together. Not being afraid to be vulnerable, because it is uncomfortable when you're saying, I'm in this situation or I need help. But that is my first tip, is start with someone that you connect with, someone that you align with. So reaching out and saying, hey, I'm ready to work with you. Even if I don't feel ready to work with you, let's get this going. So that's tip number 1. Sherry, what is your tip?
Yeah, and just extend on that. I've had clients who we work together, and part of the process of working together is basically for you to dump all of your financial information in a shared file that we use together. And so many clients say just the act of filling out that file before we've actually had any sessions helps them to be calmer, see things more clearly. So even if you're not ready to start working with somebody, start looking at your numbers, understand what's coming in, what's going out, where you're at with your debts, and just go for it. Start, try,
go for it.
Pull your head out of the sand and get going.
Yes.
Our second tip is to figure out what works for you. And this is going to be through trial and error. Your brain is unique to you, and the systems that are going to work for you to manage your money will also be unique to you. When you go out and Google, how do I manage my money? You're going to get millions of results around always do this, never do this, you must do this. You are going to set yourself up for failure, because we need to have flexibility in our lives, and we need to figure out how to find that balance and that flexibility with our money. So if you're trying something right now with your money and you're about to give up because it's not working, don't throw it all away. Just do a pivot. Think about why it's not working and what can you change so that it gets a little easier, a little better, and starts working.
Yes. And I want to add on to that. There's so many kind of financial rules of thumb that you can read about. Have this much saved by this point, or have this much put away each month. And it is different for every situation. I've had clients that have said, the one, it's by a certain age, you're supposed to have 1 year's of salary saved up. And that's not possible for them. So then, because that goal wasn't possible, they just weren't doing anything. And I'm like, whoa, that goal's not for you. That rule of thumb is not for you. So remembering that what you read, what you see, what you hear does not necessarily mean it's perfect for you. It's situational. It's seeing what fits for you.
And the same is true for financial experts. If you find a financial expert that's spewing shit that's you have to spend 50% on this, 30% on this, 20% of this, or never do anything fun if you have debt outside of your mortgage, those are not the financial experts for you, because of that flexibility standpoint. You need to find people that you trust that are flexible, and no budget is going to look the same, because depending on where you live, what's important to you, everything's going to be different. There's no rules. Just do what you need to do to have a plan that works for you.
Yes, it is your own game. Stay in your own lane. And my tip number 3 is, when shit happens, stuff goes south, it's going to happen. Big things are going to happen in life. Do not beat yourself up. Find a friend in yourself. Build yourself up. There is enough criticism out there and enough pressure on us in this world. We've got to have our own back. So take that space and give yourself that love. Give yourself that grace. And that doesn't mean going and spending more because well, it's already this bad. It doesn't mean that sabotage spending, but it means creating that space for yourself where it's yep, this has happened, or this is something I did in the past and I really regret it. Yes, we see that. We see the lesson from it today, but we don't need to dwell on it. The road goes forward, so we move forward. We learn from our past, but that's not where we're looking.
Yeah. And cheesy saying to back that up, there's a reason why the windshield is so big and the rearview mirror is so small. Forget about what you've done. You can't change what you've done. Just move forward, move past it. Tip number 4 is to use more accounts. I know this might sound counterintuitive as a neurospicy individual because that could mean more to manage and more to worry about. But if you have one checking account and one savings account, and they're both with your main financial institution, there's a couple reasons this is setting you up for failure. And that is because your savings account is right beside your checking account. It makes it so easy to move money in and out of one into the other. And the accessibility to get that money from your savings account is going to mean you're going to have that like merry-go-round in and out of your savings account. And also having one checking account that everything happens in can feel overwhelming. You've got money for groceries, money to pay your credit card, money to pay your rent or mortgage, your income's coming in, your expenses are going out. It is like a super fucking highway, and we need to calm that shit down a little bit. And my recommendation is if you're new to this and you're just starting to make some changes with your money, to have the one savings account is okay to start with, but start by adding at least one more checking account, maybe two. So one account for your bills, where all of your like fixed bills, your utilities, everything comes out of, that's mostly a predictable expense. And then a second checking account for things that are those less predictable expenses: groceries, gas, restaurants, entertainment, everything that can vary. And those are things that you have more control over. You can even add a third checking account. And don't worry, there's ways to do this without adding any fees. There's no fee online checking accounts. We'll probably talk about that in a podcast later. But
totally will. Yeah.
So then that if you add that third checking account, that third checking account can be for the fun shit. So you can have like a spending account that's for necessities that are variable, and then a third account for things that are variable that are wants. So this could be takeout, restaurants, where like your groceries are in that second account. So it can be an account that's like you don't worry about because you've already planned it as part of your budget. So, and that's the key. When you're setting up these accounts, think about your numbers. You have to know your numbers to know like how much goes into my bills account? How much do I need to cover my bills?
Yeah.
That's super important. You can either automate these transfers between these accounts to get money into those separate accounts, or in many cases, you can ask your employer to be like, hey, I need $500 a pay to go into my bills account, and the rest can go in here. Or I need $500 to go into like my variable spending account, and the rest can go into your bills account. So you need to step back and look at your plan, big picture plan, to see where you need the money to go. But like separating it makes things so much easier. If you know your bills are taken care of, and you can make decisions on spending it by looking at your account balances for your other accounts. Like, how much money do I have in my variable spending account? And okay, payday's not for another week and a half. I know I need to buy groceries. I'm going to need gas. So I need to leave at least this much in here. You make spending decisions based on the balance, and you don't have to track how much did I spend on groceries? How much did I spend on gas? How much did I spend on Uber Eats? It doesn't matter as long as it's covering all of those expenses.
Yeah. And I think that the biggest thing is that it has organization, right? And everyone's organization is going to look a little bit different. Like Sherry and I have probably way more accounts than a lot of people would want to have, but we enjoy them and we know what they're for, and they've got nicknames on them, and that works for us, right? By separating things out, we're able to see what what is there for what we need it for. My tip 5 is you don't have to do it alone, and that's such a common theme lately with clients when we're meeting is it feels so good to have someone who's in this with us, right? And I think that there's a lot of media about like DIY with different things, and that works for some people. But when it comes to setting up the structures and having someone for accountability and for even just breaking things down for them and explaining what they've got going on, having an expert that you connect with and align with is huge. It's a huge piece, right? It's like having a doctor, someone that you can go to for your medical and your physical health, where we're here for your financial health. You don't have to do it on your own.
Yeah. And like adding in that accountability when you are neurodiverse is like, it's fucking huge. Like I have clients that I've worked with for years because they know that every month or every quarter we're going to meet, and they're like, oh shit, I haven't done the things. I better do the things before I meet with Sherry. And maybe that accountability comes from a financial professional, but maybe it comes from your bestie or your spouse or your partner. And you're just sitting down having those
Absolutely.
regular conversations about, okay, what happened last week? What's happening next week or next month or next year? And you're able
Yeah.
to bounce ideas off of somebody because, like I said, everybody's brain is different, and getting an outsider to look at things. And I really firmly believe we need to talk about money more. Like, we
Yes.
keep money behind closed doors in the dark, and we think we're alone. And I talk to so many individuals who, like, they have debt, they're overwhelmed with their finances, they don't know what to do. And
Mm.
I'm the first person that they've spoken to about that. And imagine if you're having coffee with your girlfriends when you're at like cottage weekend or whatever you do, and like you just pull it back and be like, fuck, I'm struggling, like I have this debt and I feel like this about my debt. That's gonna like start to peel back those layers and let
Yes.
those people that are closest to you know, like, oh
Yeah.
shit, like me too. Like, start those conversations with those people you love and trust, because like chances are it's going to help you as much as it helps them.
Yes. And I mean, that's part of this podcast, right? Is like we're talking about the numbers and encouraging those conversations. And I think social media is fantastic. You and I can both attest to getting doom scrolling on there and finding really funny things and really light things. But there's also this big comparison cloud that comes over top of us. And we're like, how are they going away again? How are they going on vacation? Like, I know what she does and I know what he does. And how can they afford this? And why are we in debt? And it's like, stay in your own lane, because the pretty picture is only one side, right? Beyond that pretty picture, there's so many numbers involved. And typically it's, of course, on social media, we're posting our best sides. So that then creates even more shame around like, well, my situation doesn't look like that. It's like, yeah, but there's, you're only seeing one side of theirs as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you and I have the unique perspective to like, see behind those closed doors and be like, yeah, they just got a nice new car and like they renovated their kitchen. But then sometimes those conversations are like, oh shit, interest rates went up and now my mortgage went up because I'm on a variable mortgage, and now like I can't pay for this, that, and the other thing. And like we celebrate those vacations, we celebrate those new vehicles, but because we're not talking about paying off debt and living within our means, those
Yeah.
things aren't celebrated because they're not talked about. Add
Yeah.
into your circle people you can talk to those things about so they can be celebrated.
Yes. I love that.
And tip number 6 is to automate as much as you can. Oftentimes, having to physically do something is a barrier to that shit actually getting done. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you can automate and make the money go where you want it to go, when you want it to go there, that is beauty. That means that you can fall asleep at the wheel for a little bit if you're having a bad day or a bad week, and the money goes where it needs to go. So, for example, personally, on payday, money goes into our main account and then trickles out into all the other places that we want and need it to go for those irregular expenses, things like property tax, annual insurance payments. And then when that bill comes in, you're not stressed out, because what happens a lot is that we're going along, we build our budget, and we have our budget where it's got all of the things that are easy to plan for, our rent, our mortgage, our car payment, but it doesn't have those things to help us when those like bigger payments come up, where you need a new washing machine, where like something breaks. So being able to put money into accounts little bits at a time. Like if you're starting to do this and you have a vehicle, start with a car maintenance fund. We know our cars need maintenance. Being able to maintain our cars can mean we can have them for longer. And if you have a car payment, you can then avoid a car payment for a couple of years or longer after your car's payment is done. It's like, just figure out where you can put automation in. Automation can help us pay our credit card bills. It can help us pay our utilities. And like if you're using automation to pay like a line of credit or credit cards, like that's also side benefit going to help your credit score, because
Yeah.
missed payments and late payments are something that for neurospicy individuals can be huge. And one missed credit card payment can really like tank our score. And like you need a lot of months of good payments to recover. So figuring out like what things are barriers to you and is there a way to automate them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the automation is huge. And the other aspect is that like out of sight, out of mind, right? So having accounts that maybe aren't as accessible to you, it creates that pause before a purchase.
Yep,
So
exactly.
thanks for tuning in.
And we can't wait to see you next time. And be sure to give us a follow and subscribe so that you get that next episode as soon as it drops.